Hey guys, as promised, I'm back with some more Wildgate content, and today I wanted to talk about the state of balance. A lot of people seem to be really concerned about this because it's probably one of the more glaring issues in the game currently. There's three main things I want to touch on in this video, that being the AIM, Ion, and of course the laser RAM. And then I've also seen on Reddit especially a lot of people talking about solo queue and how unplayable it feels, and I want to talk about that a little bit at the end as well. So first, and what I think is probably the biggest balancing issue, is the AIM. The state it's in right now is just absolutely disgusting, if you ask me. Um, the range is just pretty much nearly uncapped for all reasonable fights, especially when trying to board an enemy ship. Um, it's just disgusting. Now, for short range, obviously, there's ways to outplay the AIM with other guns, which I think is great. My main problem is a gun with auto aim should not be the go-to option for longer ranges, pretty much ever, I don't think. So I would mainly just like to see them cap the range and maybe tone down the damage a little bit. And there's a lot of people that disagree with the presence of auto aim guns in shooter games to begin with, but personally, I really don't have a huge problem with it as long as there's a trade-off. Your trade-off for getting aim assist essentially should be damage and range, or maybe a lock on time. There needs to be a give and take. It really shouldn't be on par with other weapons. For example, the beam rifle is like near obsolete. It's supposed to be good in those mid-long range fights, and it's just completely outclassed. There seems to be quite a bit of buzz around the AIM though, and I think it will be addressed by launch, so I'm not too worried about it, but I do feel like, adding my piece. The next thing I want to talk about, and probably the most contested debate I've seen on Reddit especially, is Ion and whether or not he's actually strong. And I think Ion is completely busted. Now, I hear what people are saying, that he doesn't have mobility, like a lot of the other boarders, and a lot of situations that feels necessary for getting on the enemy ship and actually wreaking havoc. And I think that's a great point. I agree. However, when Ion does get on, and he has plenty of ways to get on, um, it's just absolute carnage. He can punch out every window, every door, every cannon, every engine, and just totally cripple your ship, all while never even setting foot on it. If you have a turbine, you can just float around and melee everything, and then just teleport home with your turbine and reboard again, on repeat, just cripple the enemy ship. And I think that's where the problem is that I don't see with other boarders. Like for example, the drill charge, right? You get two of those. You board the enemy ship, you break the window with a drill charge, they repair it, you break it again, they repair it. There you go, done. Ion can just sit there, break it, fly away. Like, he doesn't even have to shoot you through the window. The pressure of just breaking the window is enough to make the ship almost unflyable. And there's pretty much no other choice to counter this but to just have somebody sitting on top of your ship permanently defending against him. And you better hope they win their gunfight too, because if they don't, that's another person that almost has to get off repairs, off cannons, off the helm to go kill Ion. And I haven't even gotten to the fact that he's tied for the most health in the game, and that his backhand gun automatically reloads, which means you can board with a double whammy, one-shot somebody, switch to your primary gun, and just keep rotating back and forth. So yeah, in my opinion, his kit's insanely overloaded, and he's easily the best character in the game. And then third, I want to talk about the laser RAM. I have quite a few thoughts about this, especially how it relates to pilot gameplay. Now, obviously, I think the laser RAM is extremely strong. I think a lot of people have noted that when you have it and the enemy team doesn't, it feels unlosable, and when the enemy team has it and you don't, it feels unwinnable. And yeah, I generally agree with the sentiment. I think it's one of the strongest ship upgrades, and easily the strongest non-legendary ship upgrade. However, I think as people get better at the game and learn to play around the laser RAM, and use range when the opponent has it, I think it'll seem more balanced. And I don't know how you guys feel, but to me, piloting is probably the least fun I have while playing the game. Personally, I find that boarding or shooting cannons or defending your ship from boarders is just generally more stimulating than flying the ship, which I think is especially unfortunate because flying the ship is probably the most important role on the ship. So in this vein, I think the laser ram is important because the most fun by far I've had flying the ship is with the laser ram. It is just awesome to absolutely shred the enemy ship and maneuver your ship to keep them, at a good range for it. So with this in mind, I think it would be a shame to see it become more rare, like if they made it a legendary item. So I still want it to be in the loot pool, how often it is, but maybe tone down the damage. And in general, I'd like to see more items and hardpoints that are usable by the pilot to make the role a little more interesting. That's pretty much all I have on item balancing issues. I kind of wanted to give my 2 cents now on solo queue and group play and, not having a full stack to play with. Now, obviously, a party of 4 and a call is probably going to function better on their ship than 4 solos who got grouped together. But what I really want to ask people is, in what PvP team game is this not the case? And I know the argument is that sort of you rely more on your team in this game than other competitive team games. And I'm really just not sure I agree with that. I think if anybody has stepped on the Summoner's Rift in League of Legends, you know how painful it is to have one person in your team who's just not on board. But using League of Legends as an example, I do think they offer a pretty good solution to this issue. And that solution being a solo and duo queue where you can only queue into a game with other solos and duos. However, with the current size of the game, I do worry this would sort of fragment the player base a little too much. But personally, I'm not dying for a solo duo queue. As you can see the game on screen here, I'm playing with just one of my friends, and we did just fine. We won the game, had a lot of fun. But I do think it's something for the devs to consider because a lot of the community seems to be having problems with solo play. That's all I have for you guys today, though. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and go check me out on Twitch at bucket_TTV for more Wildgate content. Bro.
Enemy ship detected.
Too easy.